Welcome to the Dream Lab. My name is John Thomas, and we are going to look at another dream. So let's see what we've got today. We get these dreams that are sent in from all over the world. This particular dream is by someone by the name of Chaz Smith. So Chaz had this dream around February the 10th of 2024. Now, we're filming this in April, so about 2 months before we're getting to the dream interpretation. That just gives you a little bit of context. I'm just going to read through what he wrote down as the dream, and then we'll talk through it a little bit and see where we end up. So Chaz wrote, my wife and I were shopping for a new car. We ended up finding a top-of-the-line, incredibly expensive van, almost like an RV. Really, it was feature-rich, huge, big enough to live in. I even think it had a shower. We test drove it. It was dark gray with a very light brown leather interior. You tell the dreamer is remembering lots of details, so that's always fun. Don't get caught up in the details when you're interpreting. I'll say that again a little bit later, but that's going to be important. With a very light brown leather interior, the driver's seat was on the right side instead of the left. We decided we wanted it, never talked about money. So we traded in our white SUV. The price for the van was $457,000. But I think we got it for free or something because, like I said, we never talked about money. It was either given to us or we could easily afford it because we weren't worried about the cost at all. Now, that sounds a little bit odd for normal. So that's something you're going to want to make a note of in your mind. Okay, that's important. There's something to that. We'll come back to that when we're going through the interpretation of the dream. While the salesman was backing out of the showroom, he backed into an older yellow car and had to buff out the van. Scuffs, faded paint spots, etc. But then I remember it was practically brand new and it looked new and shiny again. We took it home, and when we got in to drive it away, there was no steering wheel, just a metal mounting bracket for the wheel. I drove it anyways, all but I hit a few curbs because of no steering wheel. We went to my now dead grandparents' house where my mom and dad were living, and they met us in the living room. The van had a black protective cover on it with a windscreen zipper on the front window. I guess you could allow a breeze in, but keep the bugs out. My wife made the comment about how great that would be for someone with a baby in their lap to feel the breeze, but to be able to keep out the bugs. I can't remember if she was personalizing the baby statement or just spoke in generalities, meaning he wasn't sure if she was saying that she had a baby, she was going to have a baby, or if it was just generally like this would be nice if someone had a baby. I was not very good at driving this van due to the size, the newness, and the fact that it had no steering wheel. That would make it a little bit difficult. But I knew that I would get better the more I drove it. All right, so lots going on with this dream. I mean, that's a fun one. You're with your wife, you're looking at a car you're looking to purchase, and it's this beautiful, beautiful van, huge. It's like it had a shower in it, had these pieces, almost like an RV. It was completely set up. You could live in this van. It was a dark gray, but it had this light brown leather interior. Very, very nice. They decided they were going to get the van. Never talked about finances, never talked about money, but the dreamer knew that it cost $457,000, though he's not sure why he knew that. $457,000 for this car, but there was never any transaction going on. There was never any purchase. It was just that they now had it. When the salesman is backing the vehicle out so that they can take it home, the vehicle hits an older yellow car. And the salesman gets their van out, and it's kind of new. It's kind of like it's looks like it's new, and he was able to buff that paint out. They couldn't even tell that it happened, but maybe it had been slightly used, not quite sure. And it's time for them to take it home. He gets into the car with his wife, and when he gets into this beautiful van, he realizes there's no steering wheel here. There's just a bracket. It looks like there should be a steering wheel here, but there's no steering wheel here. Well, I've got to be able to drive it home, and it's new, it's big, there's no steering wheel, and because of that, it was difficult to drive. Hit the curb a couple times, but no real damage. Was able to get it, but they didn't go home. Instead, they went to their grandparents' house. Now, the grandparents are actually passed away, but their mom and dad lived in that house. And so they get to the grandparents' house and they're in the living room. They're talking about this van, and the van has this beautiful black protective cover that is over it. And his wife is talking about how this protective cover, that it was able to let the breeze in, but it was keeping the bugs out, and how nice that would be. If somebody was holding a baby, they would be able to feel the breeze, but there would be no bugs. And this was a wonderful thing. And they're trying to remember after they woke up. Well, was she saying that they had a baby that she was going to be holding, or is that just a general thing? That was just the concept. Not quite sure, but it ends with the dreamer realizing that without the steering wheel, because this thing is new, because it's huge, that they're not very good at managing it yet, but with some practice, they're going to be able to drive it just fine. This is one of the things, what I just did in repeating back the dream to you. I've found that it's easier for me to interpret a dream if I'm able to say it in my own words. So when you hear a dream, especially if you read a dream, it's usually helpful if you can repeat that dream back, because a couple things. You're making sure that you're remembering the major details. You're not leaving anything out. You've got all the major points. Two, you're giving a communication to this dream, and it's making it a little bit more alive to you, which is going to make it easier for you to understand and for you to interpret. So that's just a little clue that I've found to be very helpful. Now, here's what I want you to do. If you've taken any of our courses, the Understanding Dreams and Visions course that's in our online classroom, or the Streams Academy Interpreting Dreams module, you're going to stop the video, pause it, and you're going to interpret this dream. I want you to come up. What would you title this dream if you were going to give it a title? What's the focus of the dream, or who's the focus of the dream? What are the major sub-focuses of the dream? Are there any details of those sub-focuses? What's the most important pieces that you need to remember, and what do each of those mean? Once you've got that figured out, write out a dream interpretation so that you could communicate to the dreamer. Let's just picture that Chaz is right in front of you, and you're going to be telling him what his dream means. How would you say it to the dreamer? Now, I gave you the clue when I first started reading through this dream. This dreamer remembers a lot of details. If you get too caught up in the details, it's going to make this dream hard to interpret. So reduce it to its simplest form and then work through the dream. You're going to find it a lot easier. Once you've been able to work through this and you've got an interpretation and you're ready, restart the video and I'll let you know what I got for this dream. And then we'll talk a little bit about what the different elements mean, why they mean that, and maybe some applications for the dreamer, how they would respond to this dream. So we'll see you soon. When you're ready, start the video again. So I hope you didn't get too caught up in the details. There's a lot of details. Here's something that's fun with a dream like this. How could you reduce the dream to its basic plot, say it in as few words as possible, but still get the basic storyline? My wife and I got a new vehicle that was very amazing. It was expensive, beautiful, and we took it home and showed it to our family, and it was going to be a blessing. That really, I mean, we just tied it in. I even added in more details than I needed to, right? We got a new vehicle, we traded in our old vehicle, and this new thing, we've brought it to our family. Like you could say it as simple as that. Now all the rest of the details become pieces that help this out. So let's diagram this out. We'll start out with the title. What are we going to call this one? I'm sure you guys came up with a lot of great titles. I tend to keep my titles very, very simple. I'm just going to call this the new van. This is the new van. So that would be the title that I would give it. Now, who or what is the focus of this dream? In this dream, it's the dreamer. The dreamer is finding the dream. Now, finding the van, excuse me. They're with their wife the whole time. So again, you could have added the wife as participating in there, but there's still some interactions where the wife is doing things and the dreamer is doing things that the wife is not. So it actually is going to fit better to make the dreamer the focus. But because there's that clear connection, you know that this dream is really about the both of them. It's not just the dreamer, it's the dreamer, but it's also the wife. They got the new van. There's things specifically about the dreamer, but it is for both of them. So you could have put them both in there as a participating dream, but it actually is going to be easier to keep the dreamer the focus. Now, main sub-focuses. You've got van and you've got parents' house. Those really are the main sub-focuses. Now, there's a lot of details around this van. You have the fact that it is big, that it is expensive, that you can live in it. Maybe even has a shower. That's a minor detail. If you leave that out, you're not going to lose anything. The fact that it was, $457,000. Again, if you leave that out, it doesn't really change the plot. It was huge. It was big. It was expensive. And the way the dreamer talked about that number, it never really came up. It was not, they just knew that, but it was not relegating. They have to count that money out. So again, you've got that as a detail. The fact that it bumps into a yellow car, an older yellow car. Now, not while they were driving, but while somebody else was driving. That they started to recognize that it was a little bit older than what they originally thought, but then it actually is newer. So it has this feeling of being old and used, and yet it's actually new and clean and kept up very well. The fact that it has no steering wheel, that's an important detail. So steering wheel would be one of those details off of the van. So those would be the details. You don't even have to have all of those. So I just put lived in as one of those details. That it was expensive. So I put that as a detail. That it had no steering wheel. That was one of the details. That it was possibly old, but still looked new. So they started noticing some of the wear and tear, but it was kept up, it was clean. So possibly old, but still new. Or you could even put old with a line to new on there. That's going to be your main details. You've got the parents' house, the grandparents' house. So this is going to the grandparents' house, but the grandparents are passed away, the parents are living in there. So that's kind of important, but nothing really happens there. But this is context that's important other than the van is there. And it was in this context that we see the van has a black protective cover. So you could put protective cover as a detail, either off of the parents' house, but it's really off of the van, but there's a connection there. And then the whole interaction with the wife saying how nice that would be. It keeps the bugs out, but lets the breeze in. So it keeps the pests out, but it allows the atmosphere in. All right, a lot of pieces. What does a van represent? Well, what does a vehicle represent? If you've got the Dream Elements book and you've looked at this or you've been through some of our teachings, a vehicle is how you get from here to there. It could be talking about something related to your work. It could be talking to something related to your life, something related to your ministry. This is them and their wife. So this is something about their family. It's how their family is going to move forward into their destiny. So this is talking about a new season that's coming. What do we know about this new season? One, that it's a lot better than the last season, meaning it's a lot more expensive. It's going to be all encompassing, that this isn't just something that they're doing, but this is their whole life. They traded in their white SUV for this van. So that could be talking about what they used to do in ministry or how they used to be operating, that it was good, it was right, but there's something new. It's going to be different, but it's going to be a life focus. They're going to be living in it, right? So that's one of the pieces. The fact that it doesn't have a steering wheel. They don't know how to navigate this season. They don't have the ability. So it's not the knowledge alone, but it's the ability to navigate, that they're not equipped to navigate this well, but God is going to teach them because they were still able to drive without the steering wheel. And at the end of the dream, they knew if they just kept on practicing that they were going to get better and better at it, that they needed to grow and they needed to keep on doing it. And that some of the minor hiccups that they hitting the boundaries, hitting the curbs as they were driving it, they're going to realize in this, because of their lack of the ability to navigate well, that they're actually going to be bouncing up against some boundaries, but it's not going to harm anything. Just realizing that that is a growing season and they're going to grow through that. They're going to grow out of that. That's what that's talking about. The fact that they went to their grandparents, which is their parents' home. This is saying that this is something generational, that this is actually related to a spiritual inheritance that they have from the bloodline, that is connected. That's why there's not a lot of interaction. It's just that this is where this is coming to, for them to come into their spiritual inheritance. And then in the place of spiritual inheritance, there's a conversation about the next generation, babies, someone that is raising up someone, that is helping someone to mature, that has birthed something new, or somebody that's helping the next generation, that this is going to be good because built into this new season is a protection that keeps those things that would bug them out while allowing the coolness of the wind of the Spirit to affect them. So it actually is a built-in filter that keeps out negative spiritual activity while letting in the positive spiritual activity. So these are all of your pieces. Now, how are we going to put this together to communicate to Chaz what his dream actually means? How did you come up with your interpretation? What was it that you said? Here's how I would say it to Chaz. Chaz, this dream is letting you know that you're coming into a new season. A new season, what you've been doing has been good, it's been right, but there's going to be a shift from the way that you've been operating into this new thing that you're going to be doing. And it's going to take up your whole life. You're going to be living in this thing. And it's not just about you. This is something that your family is going to be doing together. You and your wife are doing together. And it has a lot of potential. It's astounding. It's beautiful. It's great. You're going to realize that there are some issues that have actually already been dealt with. At first, you'll notice some things that maybe aren't very helpful, and how this same thing has been in conflict before. But it's been cleaned up. It's been fixed. You're going to be able to move forward in a new way. You're not going to feel equipped to be able to navigate the new season well. You're going to feel like you don't have everything that you need to be able to move forward and to get to where you're going. But if you will trust, you will find that you do. It's going to take you some time to grow into it. At first, you're going to be bumping into some boundaries. You're going to be hitting the curb, if you will. You'll be bumping into some boundaries, but just keep moving, because with time, you're going to be able to grow. This thing is new. It's bigger than anything that you've done before. And you don't have all of the equipment that you think that you need. But through practice, you're going to be able to grow. And you're going to realize that this is actually a spiritual inheritance that's been passed down in your family. And it's not only good for you, but you're going to be able to give it to the next generation. You're going to be able to filter out the negative spiritual activity that's in that environment of your spiritual inheritance and receive the good in this new season. And that's going to be wonderful. So, I hope that's hopeful, Chaz. And for the rest of you that were interpreting this dream, I really hope that's helpful. What's the application? Now, what do we do with that? So, one, there's not a lot that's in there that says that you need to do anything. There's nothing that there's a decision that needs to be made. There's no action that needs to be made. It's just saying that there's something that's new that's coming. So when you recognize this new thing, step into it. Like that would be the one thing. But all of the other pieces is just stuff that's going to happen. Or it's possible that it's already happening. You might already be partially in this season. So just recognizing the season that you're in. This is not a dream that's giving you instruction. This is just giving you information. This is just letting you know what's going on in your life or what's going to be going on in your life. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this dream is talking about something that you're currently in, you're already in that transition, or if it's something that's going to be coming. My immediate sense is you're looking and you're looking around and trying to make a decision. Perhaps there is some encouragement that if you start noticing some issues with what seems really good and really astounding, not to give up because of the issues, because they're going to be easily buffed out and removed. There's going to be resolution. So maybe there's a little bit of an encouragement there for you. But you may not even recognize that right away. You may recognize that afterwards when you're looking back. So I wouldn't wait until you see that. So not a lot for the application other than trust and pray. Pray for God to give you the wisdom to be able to navigate the season with as little bumps as possible and to be able to recognize how what he's doing is filtering out the negative spiritual activity and letting in the positive spiritual activity, specifically in a spiritual inheritance that you're going to be passing on to the next generation. Now, one last comment before we end this. I've said a couple different times, next generation, next generation, next generation. In the dream, the dreamer was not sure if the wife was talking about their baby or the general idea of baby. So I'm leaving that. I don't know if this is talking about their own children that they're going to have or they won't have, or if there's even a promise that they're going to have. It doesn't say, I don't have enough to say that. Maybe it's people that they're going to be discipling. Maybe this is just talking about the general next generation and not the specific. So that's why I left that very vague, because it could go either way. And I don't have the revelation, the clear revelation from the Lord to be able to navigate that. Here's one other piece on this for interpretive process. $457,000. Like that one, I looked up all kinds of possibilities. I looked up Isaiah 45:7. That didn't work. Isaiah 4:5-7. That didn't work. Psalm 45:7. No, that didn't fit. I looked up John 4 verses 5-7, looked up Ephesians 4:5-7, looked up Revelation 4:5-7. Nothing landed. I just don't know what to do with the 457,000. But in the plot of the dream, if you leave that out, it doesn't change the plot. So if we never understand why 457,000, we can still interpret the dream and give this dreamer something that's helpful. So when you go back through is the way that I interpreted that dream, when I started speaking to Chaz, you realize I just left that out, but it didn't leave a gap in the interpretation. That's how we recognize it was a minor detail. Now, you can't do that if it's a sub-focus. But when it's a minor detail and it doesn't directly change the plot of the dream, then you can do that and it still can make sense. And possibly, once they get there, they'll recognize what the 457,000 is talking about. It's very possible. I don't know. We'll find out one of these days. So don't get caught up in the details, because if you wait to interpret the dream until you understand every single detail, sometimes you're not going to be able to interpret the dream, because God doesn't tell us every detail. We know in part, we prophesy in part. Be okay with the part that you have. Give that part, because you have a piece, the dreamer has a piece, somebody else is going to have a piece. God is going to make it all fit, and he will accomplish his purposes in the dreamer's life as long as they're responding to him. And that's the important thing. So, bless you guys. Thanks for joining us for this Dream Lab. We'll see you the next time here at the lab.